Welcome back to the Signal Fire, y'all. My name is Fire Knight, and as the title is suggesting, I am writing a book. No, it's not a work of fiction or nonfiction or anything like that. It is a book of poetry. I've been posting several excerpts of it on Twitter and Discord. And what, Nani? Fire Knight has a Twitter and Discord? Actually, yes, Frank. It's in the description below. Yeah, I've been working on this for about a year or so now, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. The title is actually called Ashes of the Crossroads, and I'm going to get into the content in a little bit, but for now, it is kind of just an overview. It is a three-part book of 75 poems total, three parts of 25 each. And it's kind of an extended metaphor, really. And once again, I'll get into that in a few minutes. It's going to be published under Lilac Flame. For those who don't know, the majority of you probably, it is actually my best friend Ray, aka Laney's publishing label. She's done it for all of her books, such as De Mortis, Littlest Hero, Cellophane and Lorelei, among others. And she's been probably my biggest cheerleader in the course of writing this book. Not just of the book itself, but of the fact that I've gotten back into writing poetry, and all the poems that she's read so far, probably about close to a dozen, she thoroughly enjoys. So it's nice to actually have that kind of feedback, as well as people on Discord and Twitter. The Fire Pit's been very receptive over it, so I really do appreciate that. Yeah, just for background purposes, I've been a lover of poetry since I was a wee lad. I want to say probably one of the first books of poetry I picked up was, I want to say, Longfellow. I know, everyone's like Shakespeare, other, well, that's not really poetry per se. Other famous poets out there. I've always had a love for that. I want to say the first real poetry book that I actually, though, read from cover to cover was, oddly enough, Dante's Divine Comedy. And yes, that actually is a book of poetry, for those who don't know. A lot of it's been prosed, but I want to say I was probably like 7 or 8 years old when I actually first read the Divine Comedy, courtesy of my dad's library collection. But I've been an avid lover of poetry for as far back as I can remember. Going back even into elementary school and then middle school and high school and the early parts of college, I was always writing poetry. People in high school often know that in my bag I had a folder probably about that thick, consisting entirely of poetry that I would write over the course of the years, months, whatever. And actually later on in my high school and college career, using that word very loosely, I actually won a few awards for it. Had my poetry published in a few books, a couple of newsletters, that kind of thing. I even had my own website for about 6 months, now that I think about it. But as to why I love poetry so much, I love allegories. I love extended metaphors. I think that those things are so cool because it's ambiguous and it's left open to interpretation. And as for me, for those of y'all that know me well enough, know that I pretty much deal with extended metaphors and allegories. Why? Well, there's a lot of explanations and reasons to why I so often deal with it. A lot of it deals with the sheer fact that for the majority of my life, being straightforward and upfront with my emotions and how I feel is overlooked, downplayed, suppressed in some cases, and never really touched upon. So my way of channeling all that energy, whether it be positive or negative, was always in an extended metaphor. Poetry for me is more than just a form of creativity. It's often known as a form of catharsis, which kind of deals into the content of the book itself. So, Ashes of the Crossroads, like I said, is a three-part book. Each part deals with a certain concept. The first part being called The Fall, the second part being called The Darkness, the third part being called The Message. And like I said, this is a concept book which, for background purposes, 2019 was pretty much the worst year of my life. There were a lot of things that I had to deal with that were suppressed for many different years and kind of had to come to the surface, and I basically had to relearn how to live, for lack of better terms. A lot of stuff And I never really had kind of a way of channeling that. It was just get up, go to work, come home, record, rinse, repeat. Um, so I'd say probably about, Ray can correct me on this one. I'd say for 9 to 10 months to the better part of a year, I started doing a forced march of writing a poetry, one a day, as this kind of a way of not just a form of creativity, but also, once again, a form of catharsis, putting out how I was feeling. And while I was writing that, I noticed that it all shared a similar message, that fall, that bottoming out, and then trying to deliver a message of proactivity and positivity down the pike. I'd say it's about halfway done. I want to say part one is, I'd say 2/3 of the way done. Part two is about somewhere between a half and 2/3 of the way done, and part three is about a third of the way done, almost close to a half, give or take. It's hard to tell because I write a poem and then I'll decide, let's not talk about that just yet. And concept is a big thing. Like I said, each poem is deeply personal. It deals with topics such as anxiety, depression, burnout, overworking, emotional rhymes with excuse, gaslighting, and a few other topics that until now I've never talked about on the project. And only a few people know about some of them. Most notably, throwing this out there, addiction. You can't get much more upfront about that now, can we? Um, but it's about sharing my experience via extended metaphor, via allegory, because if I'm experiencing these things, and I have experienced these things, then other people out there are experiencing them as well. And I've always said strength in numbers, trying to find that air of relatability, and by putting these concepts out there on in front of people, um, I feel like maybe those that read it might say, like, I can relate to this, I've been in this situation before, or I'm possibly going through this, or I am going through this. I mean, there's a wide range. I mean, the fall talks a lot about um, just kind of that fall from grace, as it were, starting at the kind of feel of like tall as a giant, to plummeting off that cliffside. The darkness kind of deals with, obviously the worst of it. A lot of the demons that I have kind of locked in the closet under the stairs. Go back under there. I don't want to talk to you right now. We'll talk about this later. And them rearing their heads, it's like, no, enough is enough. You can't deny us forever. We're here and we're in your face. And trying to navigate those waters between the fall and the darkness so I don't let said things consume me, because a lot of it was consuming for me, and I hid it behind a lot of different things, not just of negative things, but almost toxicity and positivity, between throwing myself out there and helping other people and doing streams and doing all this. And it wasn't really, I didn't feel it, which brings into part three, the message, which is, there is a light out there and it's not an oncoming train. And as for the title, Ashes of the Crossroads, I mean, crossroads have always been kind of a hot button topic for me, for lack of a better description. It always symbolizes change, because you're stuck at that way. You can keep going down the same path. You can deviate to one path, or you can deviate to another. And it's that big decision about which way do I go, because you can't remain there forever, because the world's not going to stop moving, and neither are we. And as for the ashes part of it, I mean, well, big Dark Souls fan over here. And of course, Signal Fire, of course. That's another big facet. It's about setting fire to the wrong choices, the choices that are not going to be beneficial to you in the long run. It's about laying waste to those empires, to the path that brought you to where you are. Because the past is always going to have an influence over us, because that's where you got to. But it shouldn't have, how do I phrase this? It shouldn't have that much of an impact on your future because we are all able to change how we got here and have it influence us in a positive manner. It's about taking the right decision, taking the right path, taking the right road, and laying waste to the darkness that is behind you, accepting the fact you fell, accepting the fact there is darkness in each and every one of us, and putting that message out there to others that it's like, hey, you can get through these crossroads. Doesn't matter how many crossroads you come to, you can get through that. And I'm hoping that this book will have some positive impact. Whether people read it or not remains to be seen. I mean, I know obviously Ray's going to read it. A few of the keepers of the Signal Fire are probably going to get free copies of it because, hey, they've been a major influence on my life. They've been very supportive over the years, and I can't thank them enough. So, yeah. So for those of y'all that are on Twitter and want to find out more, I post excerpts a couple times a week just to kind of show you what it is. Mainly so far, I posted like maybe 4 or 5 clips. I'm going to post a few more probably tomorrow and over the course of the weekend to give you guys a taste of it. I am going to be looking for an artist to do the cover art. It's going to be released digitally for now just because cost of printing and stuff like that. It's going to obviously cost a pretty penny to do all that. But I'm going to talk to a few other author friends that have books published and kind of go through the rigmarole with that. I know Ray/Laney is going to help me get through some of that stuff, but overall, I'm very excited about this. I think it's I think it's going to be a big step, not just to get back in the creative swing of things and kind of help me influence some other parts. I feel it's integral to the Signal Fire project because, as I've talked about in interludes and when the rebranding, I want to kind of put more of a spin on the personal side of things as well. That's why I'm doing indie games. That's why I'm doing more under the radar things. So it's kind of that reaching out to shed more light on stuff that has not been brought to light. And that includes myself, of course. So if you are interested in eventually, getting a copy of it, follow me on social media, Twitter, Discord. I don't have a Facebook page, nor do I think I ever will be getting one. I'm not that big. So let me know what you guys think. I'd love to share Ashes of the Crossroads with you as it gets closer to release, and hopefully you guys will be interested in getting your own copy. But big thank you to the Fire Pit on Twitter and Discord, as well as the Keepers of the Signal Fire, once again, for your unconditional love and support. My gratitude truly, truly knows no bounds. So once again, big thank you to Christoph Frey, sponsor of the project, as well. Once again, if you want to follow me and do a little bit more for the project, link is in the description below to everything from Twitter to Discord to Twitch, once again, that I'm not using, and of course, Patreon. So until then, have a fantastic evening. And always remember, keep your fires burning.